live. Go live. Hello. How are you? Welcome to today's broadcast. I'm actually having some internet connectivity issues, so if you're just tuning in, if for whatever reason this disconnects, just know that I'll be right back on. It's not my fault, not to me to control the network, and I really want to do this particular broadcast today because next week Sierra Leone is playing Leone Stars. Leone Stars is playing at AFCON. And another thing, say the temperature get for rights for we talk about Auditor General reports. The Auditor General report was released, I think, on December 15th. So in the middle of December, it's still within the month. And as you know, there have been a lot of issues, preceding the release and all of that. So. So thank you for tuning in. If you're just tuning in now, please share this broadcast with anyone who you think is from the Sierra Leonean community and might be interested in hearing about the content of the 2020 Auditor General Report. Now, let me introduce myself. If this is the first time you're watching me on the internet, my name is Vicky, and I'm from Sierra Leone. I have a background in political science and in broadcast journalism, but I work primarily as a communications consultant. I also host a television show, I produce 2 podcasts, and I run a marketing company. But so before we talk about the Auditor General report, I just want to talk a little bit about the political landscape in Sierra Leone right now, where we've come from, and why and place the Auditor General's report within the context of what's going on in Sierra Leone today, or Sierra Leone today. The first thing that you need to know is that we had elections in 2018. So we had parliamentary and presidential elections in Sierra Leone. I have participated in 3, maybe more than 3, maybe 4 elections in Sierra Leone. The first time I was in Sierra Leone was as an elections observer for the 2007 elections, which was Solo B was the presidential candidate for SLPP, and Ernest Baikroma was the presidential candidate for APC. I was in Sierra Leone, and I got to be elections observer. Oh, right. I'm also an author of 2 children's books. Thank you, Davis. So the next time I participated in elections was in 2011. I got to register for the first time as a citizen, because it was the first time I was an adult. And thank you, Sophia, too. Happy New Year to you. And it was the first time I was of age and could vote in presidential elections in Sierra Leone. So 2011, I registered to vote, and then I flew into Sierra Leone from New York to make sure that I could register to vote. And then then voted in that election. I voted for re-election of Ernest Baikroma, who, after his first term, to me, had performed well enough that he deserved a second term. I was like a huge fan of the first term. I think a lot of Sierra Leoneans were also a big fan of the first term of the Ernest Koroma of President Korma's regime, or like 2 terms. Anyways, then in 2017, I started working with AYV TV in the prep up for just like conversations around what we could do for the elections. In 2018, I went to Sierra Leone, and I was in Sierra Leone for 6 months. And for the first 3 months of my time there, I worked at AYV. There we go with the internet disconnection again. There we are. Sorry about that. In 2018, I worked for AYV Television, leading the digital coverage of the 2018 elections, meaning that anything you saw in that 2 to 3 month period around the elections, content-wise, I handle all their Twitter, all their Facebook. I also co-produced a documentary, which was broadcast during the 2018 presidential debates. I co-produced a documentary around just like, what Sierra Leoneans wanted and what the key issues were for Sierra Leone. Went to Connaught, went to Potoko. I think we also went to Mabroka. I want to say Mabroka. Yes, we went to Potoko, Mabroka, and Connaught to basically get a temperature of where Sierra Leone was, what life was for Sierra Leoneans in the lead up to the elections, what key issues they had. So then all of that documentary all of the contents was put together in one documentary, which was broadcast during the 2018 presidential elections, which was held at Bintumani. I was also at the 2018 presidential debates. Live tweeting and doing digital coverage for AYV. On election day, I was also working. I went to register. Well, I went to vote. After I went to vote, I then went to report. So I went back to AYV and was just like, people were sending in their reports from different parts of the country to AYV, and I was making sure that that was getting onto the network. Anyways, in general, I've always had an interest in politics. Oh, I also publish a website called sweetsalon.com, which is the oldest news blog on Sierra Leone news, culture, entertainment, and we cover government and politics. So I've been doing this for a really, really long time. I feel like politics is everyday life, right? Politics, people are like, oh, you shouldn't engage in politics because then go cost you, then go this and go that. But politics is life. Life is politics. Everything we do is affected by politics. The fact that I can use the internet to contact you today is about politics, right? Politics makes this possible because I could be living in a country like China where I wouldn't have access to just be going live to broadcast like this. Access to technology, access to the internet is a political issue. Whether or not you have healthcare, whether or not you have food, whether or not you have a job, how much doctors get paid, the quality of your roads, quality of life, life expectancy, electricity. All of these things are political things, right? And so sometimes it's like, oh, you shouldn't talk because it's going to get this negative reaction, but political decisions affect our everyday lives. So either you're part of it and you engage, or you don't engage and you're still affected. So my thing is, when issues are important to me, I'll talk about them. It doesn't matter who likes it. I don't do it to please people. I do it because I have a platform. I know people are watching. And I also know that, to be really honest with you, majority of Sierra Leoneans cannot access the Auditor General report. That's the bottom line. Then it's 500 pages. Majority of Sierra Leoneans, like 90% of Sierra Leoneans, access the internet via the mobile phone. How many people are going to download a document on their mobile phone and read 500 pages of it? It's not possible now, you phone, right? How many people in a salon, get access even to the internet like that? So being able to read the Auditor General report even is a privilege because the majority of Sierra Leoneans don't have that kind of access. And as a person who does have the access, as a person who does have a platform, and as a person who has been following politics and governance issues in Sierra Leone, for over 16 years, I have a responsibility. Now, for the Auditor General's report. So the Auditor General reports na team where the audit service they do every single year. And the audit service na basically office departments within the government of Sierra Leone where they young work with and they do. Now for make them monitor and assess whether or not governments they make good for money, good for value decisions. If the money where governments get for national development, where governments get that money, governments they use them one in a way where they're not a waste them, they're not a misappropriate them or thief them. They're not then just they waiting and say then they do. them for do. So every year government they make budgets. Government Ministry of Finance they take that budget, they can't go to Parliament. We then go to Parliament and they present, Parliament approve the budget. That budget they government they say, okay, this money so this now the plan of how we get for spend money for lay salon meets the medium term national development plan. Now the plan where the government say it they use for lay salon go before. Okay. So right now, the millennium, another 5-year development plan they pan. So the money where governments get every year, and for do thing and for make the governments go before, right? The money that for let the governments go before, let the country go before. Okay. Someone saying the network they give problem. Oh, I know. Isn't that terrible? Let me see if I can fix that. Seconds. And then I'll turn this off. Okay, I've tried to switch over my network. Hopefully this works. If it doesn't work, I just get a beer with me. Anyways, so where governments get the money, in responsibility now for spending money wisely and well. Most of when they watch if na salon you come out and say you're a member of social club, now you community or community club. Una no say if una social club then they benefit and go before. The policy where they watch the money, the way then they handle the money, now they make the club go before. But if una want to give the money to the person and they waste the money waiting and call that club they know they go before. Same thing normal with government. So waiting the audit service they do every year, then they watch all the ministries, all the departments, all the money where they get that, where then say they get for use for X, Y, and Z. Then they go watch for say if the team where then say then they do now then do. If they do, I'm fine. If they follow the law, if they follow the procurement tool, if then do waiting then supposed for do. In order for proof say you do what you're supposed to do, you need for keep cash receipts book. You get for you what you say you spend waiting then and you bank waiting you bank record show get for connect all of these things and they watch all team for see say you do it according to the law. The money waiting you deduct naya you spend naya then you bring the receipts count for kind like balance you book. So now the audit service now it's made up of many professionals, right? Then get to the office. Then most of the people where they work inside there now then are audit or financial experts. They're accountants, they are auditors. For you be auditor, you get for go special auditor school, you get for go qualify, you get for go certify for you become auditor. Then they also get international audit organization where get in audit rules. Because you're in a profession like accountancy, auditing, medicine, law, all of these are professions where then get like codes a way for if you do this work now according to how we are the professionals and not agree say we do them. So auditors and they work in our audit service. Now, as far as salon is concerned, every year we don't get audit service reports. This year, before the audit service reports come out, like maybe 2 weeks or 3 weeks before it come out, the president suspend the auditor general. The president also suspend the deputy auditor general. He say basically they know they do their work fine. This not been before the report ever come. Then government say it is set up a tribunal like court. Not a really court, but tribunal. It don't appoint some people them like one judge and 2 other people, their lawyers them. We get for sit down on the matter for see if the auditor general and the deputy auditor general they actually like violates law where them prepare this audit report or waiting that where government accuse them for go find now if the accusation gets any merit, if it gets any evidence. We don't know who stand the courts go begin, the tribunal go begin sit down, but now they we day. Now, where I've been go tongue na Freetown, me and the deputy auditor general meets because I possibly was sabi, like just na society, because me don't do na tongue for long time, so don't do na tongue long time. And we just talk, and one of the questions they were asked Now for say, if the audit report come out, e no match wetin dem bin don do, if e go talk. He say yes, of course, he go talk. So where the audit reports come out, where then wetin dem call come out, I ask him back per WhatsApp. I say, you been say if he come out, if you no match, you go talk. He say no, waiting then at the websites, waiting they don't publish so. Now in them it not done for do. In fact, he tell me say before then they suspend them it not already done for compile this Auditor General's reports. The work been done. The meeting been done. So in say, according to Ram and I the code say this Auditor General reports within at the website. Now the one where the Deputy Auditor General and the Auditor General include their work. They not get, according to Deputy Auditor General, not different, because I know some of the Auditor General reports being come out, people they say, oh, then go down edit time, they don't put this, they don't put that, this, that. According to the Deputy Auditor General, when me in talk, he say waiting in at the websites. Them don't do. In fact, the same link within at the website later on, as he say na in your Facebook page, he posts the link. If you not be approved the work, if you not be agree with the work, if the contents where they can read, not so in them, you don't agree, but he not go share the link for say una go read them. You understand what I mean? So I not get no reason for believe say he go lie for say na this na the work we not to them work. So now, I'm going to start reading the report, which was signed by the acting Auditor General, Abdulaziz. Before I get into this, now, I may call a ministry, a department, or a company that belongs to you papa, you mama, you uncle, where they benefit from. I want you to remember two things. One, not to me write this report. I did not write it. I am reading it, okay? Two, if after I read what is there, you feel like cussing me, mama, please, must spell me name fine. Because all time when they cuss me, when I know they spell me name fine. It is Vicky, Vickie. My last name is Vermoe, Remoe. Because you know, fine way they cuss me, you cuss me, mama, then you mistake me name back. That's making that all the cusses that they cuss me. How about the disrespect? Oh, no, they even spell my name fine. So, if you are planning on cursing me after I read what I'm going to read, at minimum, please spell my name properly. Please, Remoe, not Romero, not Ramos, not Remote, not Remo, like all the other versions of it that you guys do. Remoe, not ads, please. Thank you. Okay, now, this is a message to my friends in the SLPP who are going to catch feelings, okay? I want to give you some advice, okay? I want to give you some advice. I want to give you advice. Make una listen. Una listen, oh. Before una go na power, we don't they talk about government. We don't they talk about politics. Before una go na power, okay? Where we been a talk today, we were talking. These days, you people, you don't allow us to talk in peace. We'll be talk today, APC, they're not the APC people, and they're not even follow we possibly answer one can write 5 na Facebook. Una get answer for all team. Okay? Please. I want you to listen. People like us, okay? People like us who are in the media, who talk about these issues, listen to us. Because what we offer is constructive criticism. Constructive criticism. When you get into politics, the thing where they change the most now for say, una circle they small. Yes, Olu, I'm live, I'm coming. Una circle they small. Una circle is small. Before you get into politics, before you get elected or appointed, you surround yourself with a lot of diverse people, with a lot of different diverse opinions. You engage with everybody. But as soon as una gets power, and this happens to everybody, your circle becomes small. You no longer want to hear or entertain diverse opinions because now you feel you take to feeling. Okay? And you start surrounding yourself with people who na echo chamber. They want for stay in your good graces. They want to be next to you because you have power, right? So then just get for tell you what you want for yeri because they want to maintain this relationship. I will tell you for now the things I heard in Sierra Leone before I read this audit report. You will not like it. One of the first things I heard when I went to Sierra Leone, you leka, you know leka, na for saying na Fatima Bio na president. You like it, you don't like it. This is what SLPP people are saying. This is what non-SLP people are saying. Listen. You like it, you don't like it. That's what they're saying. If somebody voted for Mada Bio and now they're saying na Fatima Bio na president, that's feedback for you to listen to hear what that means. Listen, okay? A lot of people are tired, not just me. I am telling you what I heard. I'm telling you what I heard, okay? This is what's on the streets. During President Kourouma's first term, at this point in the first term of APC, President Kourouma's term, there was no doubt in anybody's mind who was going to win the election. Not because they felt like rogue, that was how popular his regime was, that was how popular he was. His government was very, very popular. At this time in his leadership, in the first term, there was no doubt in anybody's mind who was actually in Sierra Leone and non-partisan who was going to win the election. It was not even up for debate. Like, people knew who was going to win. Currently, we do not have the same level of knowledge. We really don't know. Again, if you're an SLPP, that's something for you to listen to. Take it how you want to take it. That's all. Okay? You like it, you don't like it, buy, no buy, whatever. But the point is, government was elected to deliver on promises and definitely to be better than before. And what I'm about to read is a testament, a temperature of how government is doing. This is not about how government is doing on healthcare. This is not about how government is doing on education. This is not about anything else but about public financial management and the budget, how governments they handle the money. So as I go begin to talk this on the read, I know say people then go can begin the comments say, oh, but this, you can now check your education test per SMS. What about that? That's not what we're talking about here today. Today we're talking about public financial management. So that's all we're gonna do. You can have the other conversations elsewhere. So if you want to listen, keep listening. You don't want to listen, that's okay. Okay? But this is for those people who care about Sierra Leone. This is for those people who want to know what's going on in terms of how government is managing the budget. And this is for those people who care, right? People who, for them, they're not in any political party. They're in one party. It's called Team Sierra Leone. Okay, that's all. Now let's read. So I'm going to read. This is, again, let me paste the link for you of the Auditor General report. So if you want to get it, I've posted the link in the comment section. So you should be able to, I'm also going to add a ticker where you can download the report, the audit. Sorry, my team not it today. Me once I get for them manually. Okay, so that's the link for where you can download the audit report if you want to access it directly. Okay. Now, I am reading on page Roman numeral 4. Okay. And this is what it says. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to read this introductory part that tells you all the key details. And then I'm going to go to the part that has all the ministries broken down. And the first part I'm going to read is the details about the Office of the President, because I know in a day, beaucoup people then be one for see and one for read. Okay. The Auditor General Statement. We are delighted to present our professional opinion on the accounts of Sierra Leone for the financial year 2020. During our 16 years of independent external audit service to the nation, we have been constantly responding to emerging changes as they occur. As we strive to keep abreast with the current challenges, we are also mindful of the challenges of the future. In so doing, we have remained focused in fulfilling our constitutional responsibilities. We do this through audits that provide independent assurance to Parliament on whether the MDAs have managed public funds in accordance with sound financial policies. We have also compiled in all material respect with the relevant legal framework and auditing standards in carrying out our work. This report provides an insight on how we use our ability to serve the government, citizens, and other stakeholders, and how our work contributes to making Sierra Leone a vibrant, inclusive, and transparent nation. And then I'm going to move forward to another part. So I'm not reading every line, I'm just reading the key parts. In addition to our routine audits, we have also over the years built a good reputation, both locally and internationally. This is to underpin our level of professionalism and also champion the course of public sector accountability. In addition, our staff continue to face challenges in the field, including in some instances, lack of cooperation from some auditees with regard the provision of adequate audit evidence and general disregard to the audit process. The lack of cooperation from some auditees in some instances has resulted in backlog audits finding their way into the current year report. What does that mean? It means that, in summary, so people then basically where the audits report, where the 10 come for do the audits, then get deadline when they're supposed to submit all their documents. Boku of the MDAs, them not they submit in time. So when they submit in time, these audit reports not they include the information. So like 2018 go done, but people are not submit all their documents for 2018. Then they go submit 2019. So that makes sense. And then we go read 2019 audit, you go see information from 2017 because then people and they not 2019 and go down submit and 2017 information. So in this 2020 audit, there are certain MDAs when not been done submit the audits from 2017 and 2018 when are now then submit, and so it included, but the one that we included in that way, it'll tell you pan the headline for say this particular audit, I mean from 2018 or 2019. Okay, this section is about the role of the Audit Service Sierra Leone. The Audit Service Sierra Leone is a leading agency responsible for auditing government revenue and spending. But the primary purpose is to oversee the management of public funds, whether from taxpayers and donors, and the quality and credibility of the government's reported financial information. What does that mean? Basically, they're saying two things that they do. They're checking to see how governments manage governments manage the money where they get from taxpayers there, where NIA they collect, where donors then donate to we. Then also the quality and credibility of the government's financial information, because governments get budgeted, they prepare documents. They also they check if governments they be transparent and honest in their documents and the way governments they provide on the finances of the nation. You go see, we go cover the discrepancies the way they. Okay. And then I'm going to move forward. Public monies are used by the government. Through independent, professional, and standard-driven audit work, we establish to a level of reasonable assurance that public monies are used by the government in the manner intended by Parliament. Ministry of Finance, they take budgets, go to Parliament, and Parliament, they approve. If any they want to spend more money beyond the budget, then supposed to go back to Parliament for Parliament approve. The reason why to make that Parliament they approve, because Parliament is the will of the people. Parliamentarians represent constituencies, they represent all of us. So Parliament get for approved budgets. So the audit service na Parliament is answerable too, because na Parliament they approve the budget. Okay. We assess how they are used in terms of the economy, efficiency and effectiveness, and the quality of reporting on these activities in terms of clarity, fairness, accuracy, and transparency. We report to Parliament initially, but also to the citizenry of Sierra Leone and other stakeholders. I'm not working. Okay, Mom. Okay. So what does that mean? Again, it's still this idea that really now Parliament and the report to, but they also get a responsibility to we the citizens, which is why after the non-table, the Auditor General reports now Parliament, then can put on their websites. Then usually they can also get this kind, what can call it, press conference for later and talk about some of the highlights. Last year we've been seeing Pia's bingo Democracy Radio for go talk about some of the findings in there. Now, I'm going to go to the section on estimated losses because this is in the executive summary. And this is an important section because it is an important section. Estimated cash losses. And in this section, there's a chart. The table has losses from 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, and 2020. Now, this is what the Auditor General says about estimated losses for 2020. The estimated cash losses identified in the course of our audit amounted to 153.9 billion. If you're outside of Sierra Leone and you're watching it and you don't know what the currency exchange rate is, you can do a 1-to-1 conversion, right? So it's like 10,000. A little bit more than 10,000 for $1. So every time you hear billion in Leone's, we're talking about millions in dollars, right? So if you hear billions, we're talking about millions in dollars, okay? Now, sorry, I lost my place. So I'm going to take my calculator now. And just for those people who are not from Sierra Leone, I'm going to do the conversion for you on 150 billion. So 153 billion leones in US dollars. According to my calculator and today's exchange rates on Google, that amount is $13.4 million. So the estimated cash loss this year is 153 billion, which is $13.4 million on today's dollars. Now, these losses are in respect of the general purpose financial statements, public enterprises, ministries and departments, local council, etc. So this is not for the whole of government, also just for one government department. So this is all governments. When you think of government, both local, national, at every level, this is for governments in general. They lost 153 billion. Now, I'm going to read to you how much governments lost every other year, okay? In 2016, governments lost 160 million. But of course, then they on the, that if you're thinking about it in dollars, the exchange rate was different then. So just remember that, right? So in 2016, government lost 160 million. In 2017, government lost 10 billion. In 2018, government lost 16 billion. In 2019, government lost 13 billion. Okay. In 2020, government lost 113 billion. Okay. I want you to listen. So the estimated cash losses in the course of our audit amounted to 153 billion. The estimated cash losses in the above table include those identified both in the year under review and other backlogs. Okay, so remember, say, like we say, some departments and they will not submit the paperwork till the tender done, so it can add pandicion. So all of the audits, right, that they've done for every year, they adjust it. So if people that only submitted paperwork this year, even though not for 2016, they add and pan 2016 young loss. If person only submits for 2018 this year, they add and pan 2018 young loss. Do you understand? So for this particular audit in this document. So the total, all the things that were audited in this particular report, which included previous year losses, is 153 billion. But I want you to hear the difference, right? If you add the losses from 2016, 2017, 2018, and 2019, they're not equal to 2020 EON losses. So we were talking about, so in 2017, they lost 10 billion. In 2017, they lost 20 billion. 2018, they lost 16 billion. 2019, they lost 13 billion. Okay, then you add the 160 million, it's like 39 billion for 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019. 2020 alone, this year of the pandemic, right? Where business contracted, where the world shuts down, people are not scavenged, this. The government lost 113 billion. And here loss is everybody, right? So the whole government, not just national government, including city governments. Meaning that the amount of, like, I don't even know what one called on it, the amount of government waste. The amount of government waste for 2020 when there was a pandemic or losses, because at the end of the day, some of this is actual theft, some of this is actually misrepresentation, and then some of this is contracts where they overpay for, some of this is like just bad bookkeeping. That's another part of it, right? That's the other part that we shouldn't forget, that when audit says we've lost this much, not all of it is theft. The only person we go figure out some if not theft, now then one day with the anti-corruption. And then suppose for look this and for investigate now and for say, oh, we've seen all of this and let's now go see if this is a crime, this was not a crime. So the amount of money government lost just this year alone for 2020 is 113 billion, which is, again, more than everything that was lost combined in previous years. This is important because when President Bio was coming to power, he talked a lot about financial discipline, fiscal discipline, closing the loophole, closing the leakages. I don't know if I remember what the leakages. He said he would close the leakages. So the question now that the citizens have to ask is, how are the leakages closed after 3.5 years in office, going 4 years? How is it that the leaking is the biggest leak ever? How is it that you come to power and you say you're going to close the leakages, but it's not even a leakage right now? It is like I don't know. It's not a leakage. This is just an opening. It just not to leak again. There's just no bottom, right? So it's really, really like the waste, or the misappropriation or corruption, whatever you want to call it. It's evident, you know, it's evident. So yeah, estimated cash losses 113 billion is what the audit service has listed. Now let's move on. Okay, now we're moving on to the section called revenue. This is on Roman numeral 6. Below are highlights of revenue irregularities. Total revenue 329.8 billion was as outstanding as tax liabilities resulting from non or part payments, illegal tax. So sorry, there's a comma there. Total revenue of 329 billion was outstanding as tax liabilities resulting from non or part payments, illegal tax credit claims, recalculation of tax liabilities, non-submission of evidence of payouts, and confirmed revenue arrears. Okay, and here I've highlighted different areas that they highlight that basically major revenue missing. Okay, the National Mineral Agency failed to pay 15.9 billion into the consolidated fund in 2020. Outstanding amounts of $479,000 and $408,000 for 2019 and 2020 are owed to the government of Sierra Leone by the Sierra Leone Maritime Shipping Registration, SLMARAD. This organization within the ministry, or not really within the ministry, it's like foreign based. They're the ones, like where then Tuola then can pay we for fly we flag. This is the company, the government agency that collects those money for those flag, for them, for late to let them fly the Salon flag. So basically from 2019 and 2020, this agency not pay government for them to, so it's almost like a little over $800,000 that they owe the government of Sierra Leone that they haven't paid. Nor disclosed as arrears in the GPFS. So basically, not only have they not paid it, but if you look at the government in statements, it not even mark they say they owe government this money. So that's one group that's revenue irregularity. Revenues were deposited into several escrow accounts by companies for which government shares amounting 13 billion based on the agreement were deposited into the general revenue account at the Bank of Sierra Leone. Relevant data and reports as required from the agreements were, however, not submitted for audit. So what does that mean? Simply means that money came into the account at Bank of Sierra Leone, but the paperwork not there for really give enough information for say who side this money come out, waiting at the payments for, so then they can see if the right money where them is supposed to pay, nine them pay. We reviewed 1,245 duty waiver documents that were without adequate supporting evidence. We therefore could not ascertain whether these duty waiver concessions granted to these taxpayers, which amounted to 144 billion, were legitimate. What does that mean? Basically, you remember back, say, during President Bio in campaign, this is another thing where he be raised because boku of duty, this is way PC they do boku, right? Where they used to give these duty waivers, people they pay and give government the right amount of money, okay? And so when you get duty waiver, I mean, say, if government's law say we want to bring in this water bottle, you for pay 15% on the value of the water bottle, right? Then the person they go apply to the. Can you guys please stop the fight? Una fight after the talk. Una, I go get for block una. Right now, what the truth is, because if you're insulting people, una wait for insults, okay? Una wait for insults. Stay all thing done, okay? After that, you can insult, but you cannot be spoiling this for other people. Okay, so what government does with duty waivers is this, right? I want to bring in a bottle. I go to the government and I say, oh, government, please give me a duty waiver. Government says, okay, take your duty waiver. That 20% on the value of this way you're supposed to pay for import is bottle, not pay again. So that in a duty waiver. So the audit service, they say that when they reviewed 1,245 of then duty waivers they have, so meaning that in duty waivers and concessions, government lost 144 billion because then say they're not a collector. From the data in Executor World, 58 non-governmental organizations that obtained duty waivers from the Ministry of Finance, totaling 4.5 billion, were not in the NGO Gazette of the Ministry of Planning and Economic Development. What's that mean? It simply means say some of the people that will apply for this duty waiver, then say they're an NGO. Now that make them give them the waiver. But where audit service go look, then see say them NGO they also get this duty waiver. They're not listed na the Ministry of Planning their own paper for say they're an NGO. Okay, so there are other issues here on page Roman numeral 6, but I'm moving on to Roman numeral 7 because I want to get through this executive summary so we can go to the Office of the President and see how they spent. Okay, so so now we're moving to public debt. Even though there has been an immense improvement in managing and reporting public debts for domestic arrears and external loans, a few loans with substantial values were not disclosed. Okay. We noted that Seratel was granted a loan by Exim Bank for the ADSL network with a closing balance of 29,450,000. So that's 29 million loan to Seratel from the Exim Bank. The loan agreement was, however, not submitted to the audit service, and the loan received not disclosed in the appendix of the general purpose financial statement for 2020. So what does this mean? Very simple. Seratel gets loan 29 million, but per we public statement of we disclosure of we debt, we know right and they say Seratel go take this loan. We know right waiting at the terms of the loan. So the audit service not able to see waiting that the details of the loan, waiting the inside it, but they did take a loan. Okay, now the Electricity Distribution and Supply Authority, EDSA, was given a loan valued at $7 million, which is an explicit liability of EDSA related to a revolving letter of credit to enable a steady supply of fuel for the power ship to generate electricity. We also noted the letter of credit was, however, not submitted to the auditors and neither disclosed in the general purpose financial statements. Again, EDSA took a loan of $7 million. It is a liability because it's credit, so no problem. But again, not enough disclosure to the audit service for later able to understand the details of that loan. Okay, and it's also not in the general purpose financial statements. A loan amounting $7 billion and $4.9 billion were secured directly from local commercial banks with comfort letters from the Ministry of Finance. The comfort letter for procurement of aircraft rescue equipment was not submitted to the auditors. Both loan figures were not disclosed in the general purpose financial statement. So people at the airport service took out a couple loans from local banks. Ministry of Finance gave them comfort letters. Basically, now they write for support, say, okay, if you give them this loan, then go able to pay on a letter. But basically, additional details about the actual equipment that they bought were not provided to the auditors for later actually see. Waiting at the details of the actual contracts of the thing that we then buy, and also the loan details not in at the general purpose financial statement. So basically, the general purpose financial statement is supposed to forget all things with revenue, with loans, etc., etc. If people and they lend money in different ministries and agencies and departments, it's supposed for list day. If you go lend, you know, put on day, that's a problem. Okay. Now let's move on to budget control. Sorry, I'm going to speed through this. Don't worry. We'll get to where you want to get to. Budget control. The Budget Bureau did not submit budget proposals for 4 ministries. We could therefore not ascertain whether revenue and expenditure were in line with the Public Financial Management Act and regulations. Comparison between the revised budget and the actual expenditure revealed that some ministries, departments, and agencies overspent a total of $732 billion during 2020, for which there is no evidence of action plan. There's no evidence of action plan submitted to the auditors to justify the amounts overspent. That's self-explanatory. So again, that budget that people go and that Ministry of Finance goes to submit to Parliament that gets approved, that's what we're supposed to stick within. Of course, sometimes government might need to spend more, but in order for government to spend more money, they still need to go back, create an action plan, create a budget, and then go back to Parliament to get parliamentary approval. What it's saying here is that several ministries, departments, and agencies in total overspent 730 billion wey not been at the original budget wey dem bin submit, and no kind of action plan or day for help people then for help the auditors then for understand for help the auditor they understand way to make them spend them. Okay, moving on. Okay, so we've done the public debt. I'm going to move to, okay, so this part is important because, so sometimes the audit service does additional, beyond, so audit service can decide for do audits of anything at any time. They do like these small special audits of different like organization, ministries, and departments. And they did 3 special audits that I think, performance audits, which aren't so much about money, but they are about like the quality of service that these organizations have provided. And the reason why I'm going to read this section, which is on Roman numeral 10 and Roman numeral 11, is because one of the areas covered includes the Sierra Leone Sierra Leone Correctional Service, the welfare of inmates. Of this entire audit I read, down there, have been the saddest parts for me. Like it really, really made me very sad. And so I thought I should read it so people know, but I'll read the other part. They did an audit of the Ministry of Fisheries and Marine Resources, and then the management of examinations at the University of Sierra Leone, and then they did the Sierra Leone Correctional Facility. So I will start with the Ministry of Fisheries and Marine Resources. So this is a the summary of the performance audits that was submitted to Parliament in 2020, that were submitted to Parliament in 2021. So Parliament is already aware of these special audits that were carried out on performance. Let me drink some water, guys. Okay, the following were observed at Ministry of Fisheries and Marine Resources. Monitoring and surveillance plans were not made available for inspection. Monitoring personnel were not provided safety insurance. Outstation fishing officers were not presented to monitor activities of artisanal vessels in landing sites. Detailed payments to fishing observers were not submitted for inspection. Banned monofilament nets were still being used by artisanal fishermen. License fees of 12% and 29% were collected in 2019 and 2020 respectively. Fishing vessels were constructed without the knowledge of the ministry. Defaulting fishing companies were fined lesser than what was quoted in the Fisheries Act. The Ministry of Fisheries and Marine Resources did not take any action on those who defaulted on fines. Evidence for payment of performance bond by foreign fishing companies was not presented for inspection. No surveillance was carried out on artisanal fishing activities in 2019. 18% of the intended surveillance was carried out for the period, only 18% of the intended surveillance was carried out for the review period of 2016 to 2020. So that was for performance audits of Ministry of Fisheries and Marine Resources highlights. Now for performance audits of the management of examinations at the University of Sierra Leone. The following were observed: sampled examination scripts at the Institute of Public Administration and Management, IPAM, and Frobe College, FBC, revealed that students attempt the examination even when they had not been registered. Some lecturers at FBC did not submit examination questions to the heads of departments as per policy. Module lecturers at both IPAM and FBC do not collect scripts for marking from the exams office, contrary to the policy. Lecturers did not mark and return examination grades and scripts on time, which affected the publication of students' grades. Grades given by lecturers for continuous assessment were not reflective of the students' performance during examinations. There were undue delays in the publication of results. Interviews with university authorities revealed that academic malpractices were on the rise and had become endemic within the university. The colleges lacked lecture rooms, equipped laboratories, well-resourced laboratories, effective internet connectivity, and modern technology for teaching and learning. Now moving on to the Sierra Leone Correctional Service welfare of inmates. The following was observed. There was no evidence to show that inmates were medically examined upon discharge. A review of the medical reports by the psychiatric revealed that female inmates were not fit to plea, yet they were kept at the center. Sick inmates were admitted at the center and taken to a government hospital when their health became severe as a result of a lack of adequate drugs and equipment. Sick inmates were laid on the bare mattresses on the floor of the hospital within the male facility at the Freetown Correctional Center. The hospital did not have equipment such as oxygen concentrator, cardiopulmonary resuscitator, and electrocardiogram (ECG) for heart examination. Pharmaceutical supplies were not adequate for the number of inmates. Various drugs were combined in a single dosage and administered to sick inmates, irrespective of the nature of their illnesses. I'm going to read that again. Various drugs were combined in a single dosage and administered to sick inmates, irrespective of the nature of their illnesses. So then sick, no matter whose kind sick they get, then they combine the medicine and they give them. The jail cells were overcrowded, especially at the Maximum Correctional Center. Cells were not airy or well ventilated and lacked minimum floor space when one considered the number of inmates within each cell. The toilet facilities were inadequate for the number of inmates in all the male correctional centers visited. The provincial centers were challenged with water supply, as boreholes dried up during the dry season, which led to inmates fetching water outside the premise of the prison. Monosodium crystals, commonly known as white's Maggi, was an ingredient of the sauces, even though it is known to have links with health hazards, PDL edema to inmates. So even though they know white's Maggi makes people sick, they still put it in the food. The rehabilitation program, especially in the provincial correctional centers, were not adequate, with little or no facilities in some areas visited. Equipment for skills trainings were inadequate to cater for the number of sentenced inmates that were willing to participate in the skills training, even though they were trained in batches. Evidence of inmates' ID cards were also not provided to confirm that they were legitimate. So that was the outcome of the performance audits, which is different from the regular audits that they do. The regular audit looks at money. The performance audit looks at whether or not the actual institutions are doing what they're supposed to do. I'm now going to move to the section that I know everybody wants. This is the section that's going to cost me the most mommy costs. But it's okay, you guys. I'm not the first person whose mommy will be cost. We live. We move. Okay. So first, let me explain the structure of the reports, okay? So the Auditor General's Report 2020 is divided into 3 parts. This outline is a way of reporting the observations on the public financial management system and comments of a more global nature, which is separate from the detailed entity focus. Part 1. Part 1 comprises 1 chapter, which contains the following: the Auditor General's opinion on the financial statements of the government of Sierra Leone for the year ended 31st December 2020 and related comments on the findings. Part 2. This part comprises 2 chapters, 2 and 3. Chapter 2 entails public enterprises, commissions, and donor-funded projects, while Chapter 3 comprises ministries, departments, and agencies. Part 3 consists of Chapter 4 and 5, while Chapter 4 is local counsel, and Chapter 5 comprises performance audits. Okay, so are you ready now? Okay, I need to find the part. Public debt. Okay, so I'm now reading on page 12, okay, which is important because this is where the Auditor General says that it's giving a qualified opinion, okay? Now, I'm going to read why it says they're giving a qualified opinion. I don't know a lot about auditing, but a qualified opinion, while it is acceptable, it is not good. You want an unqualified opinion. A qualified opinion means that they didn't get to see everything that they needed to see. Insufficient, basically, either people are not provide the paperwork, they're not get the access, they're not present. Government's not present everything it needed to present in order for them to say, we are satisfied, we've seen everything, to be able to do this audit and assess how you're doing financially. That would give you an unqualified opinion. A qualified opinion, so last year government got an unqualified opinion, meaning the audit service felt like they were able to look at everything they needed to look through. Now, this year, the audit service says it's a qualified opinion. We have audited the financial statements of the general purpose financial statements of the consolidated fund for the year ended 31st December 2020. These financial statements comprise the statements of cash receipts and payments of the consolidated fund, statement of comparison of budget and actual revenue and expenditure, and statement of cash position for the year that ended, and a summary of, yes, Olushola, I'm reading something. You still want to come in? Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen. I have a child, and I have to go see to that child. Are you sure? I'm going to be reading. I'm going to pull the door. Okay, what happened to the camera just now? Okay, there you go. Okay. Okay. Are you sure you want to sit? Don't you want to go do something? Do you want to go play Roblox on my phone? After I finish this, I will.
I want to see.
What? Okay, but I have to. You can't see because I'm reading. Yeah. So this is over here, but this is what I'm reading. Okay. I'm reading. I'm not talking. I'm reading. Okay. We shall continue. So I'm reading here. Okay. Yes, sweetie, I'm talking to people. Okay, so like I said, this year the government got a qualified opinion. In our opinion, except for the effect on the financial statement of the matters described in the basis of qualified opinion paragraph, the accompanying financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the government of Sierra Leone and of its financial in accordance with the cash basis international public sector accounting standards. The basis for the qualified opinion is as followed. Insufficient audit evidence to determine the accuracy and completeness of the revenue reported in the financial statements. In the following circumstances, we were not provided with sufficient and appropriate audit evidence to confirm the accuracy and completeness of the revenue reported in the financial statements. Okay. 1. Some supporting documents were not submitted to confirm the eligibility of duty waivers granted to taxpayers in the tune of $144 billion. Furthermore, waivers totaling $4.5 billion were granted to non-governmental organizations, but these NGOs were not registered with the Ministry of Planning and Economic Development in contravention of the rules governing the operation of NGOs. Revenues totaling $4.5 billion and $7.6 billion were paid into the General Revenue Treasury accounts in respect of scanning and destination inspection, respectively. Other relevant documents, such as invoices, reports, were not submitted to the auditors, and as such, we cannot ascertain the accuracy and completeness of the revenue deposited. Revenue of $2.8 billion was submitted into the General Revenue Treasury account in respect of the sale of the Sierra Leone shipping flag of convenience in 2020. Due to the nature of the contract and the supporting documents submitted, we were unable to ascertain the total revenue generated by the service provider, and therefore, the proportion of this revenue that was due to the government of Sierra Leone. Furthermore, from the documents provided by the management of the Sierra Leone Maritime Association, SLMA, we were able to determine that revenue to the tune of $479,877 and $408,157 of 8.9 billion leones relating to 2019 and 2020 respectively were not remitted into the consolidated fund by the ship registration company. This is in contravention of the contractual agreement. 33 corporation taxpayers' files were not submitted, despite several requests to justify whether they paid the estimated taxes, which totaled $2.5 billion. Comparison between the files submitted and the passenger manifest statistics of all registered airlines revealed that several taxpayers' files were not submitted to the auditors for the period under review. Based on the statistics, total liabilities for these taxpayers amounted to $209,925, which is $2.1 billion. We conducted our audits in accordance with the International Standards of Supreme Audit Institutions, ISSAIs. Our responsibilities under these standards are furthermore described where? I don't know where. I missed that line. Okay, it's described somewhere. Anyways, I'm going to go now to the second view on board. Going to go, the conversation around how the Office of the President spent. So I'm forward to that because where is that? No, that's in part 3. Thumbnails. Maybe I need to start wearing glasses because the way I struggle for part 3. See part 3 somewhere. Somebody see part 3. Oh. I'm looking for part 3, which is where? I saw part 2. I'm so na indom bad. No, I'm talking to myself, sweetheart. Table of contents. Let's see. That was part 2. Part 2 is public commissions and donor-funded projects. Here we have, I'm not going to read those because it's a lot, but I will go. I have to? I'm finding part 3, you guys. We'll get there.
I know it's part 3.
I'll see it when I see it.
This will work on the board.
Sorry? I found it. Yay. So, which is ministries and agencies. Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Planning, all the ministries, government hospitals. It also has Ministry of Education, all the various districts, Ministry of Agriculture, all the various districts. And I'm going to read, first of all, Office of the President, Office of the Vice President, and Office of the Chief Minister, which is pages 439 to 445, because there's just been a lot of conversation about that. And so let's just get that out the way. Continue scroll, contact sheet. Okay, 439. We will come back to Ministry of Finance because I think that that's like another one that's really important. Okay, we're here. Sometimes the page, okay, so now I know that there've been a lot of talk about receipts, no receipts, and travel within the Office of the President. Yes, I'm aware about the internet. At this point, like, there's really nothing I can do. So if you can hear me, great. If you can't hear me, then I'm really sorry. But today is like the only day I have to do this. Yes, sweetie. Okay, thank you. I'm not talking to myself. Anyway, so I'm now going to read the audit of Olu. No, please go over there. Okay. Over here. So this is page 439, is of the Office President 2020. Okay. This is what it says. Overseas equivalent of $1 billion for various overseas travel by His Excellency the President and the First Lady. We recommended that the State Chief of Protocol should provide the necessary retirements, otherwise said payment be disallowed and surcharged. Okay, so this is the part where, sorry, let me see if my other internet is back on. Let me just check.
So are you gonna punish it?
Okay, so we're back.
Are you gonna punish the internet?
Olu, let me read this part, I beg you. Okay, So, so in this is the section where when the audit service is doing the audit, when they find like the paperwork is not available, they write to the office to say, hey, we looked at your audits. This is what we looked at. This is what we found. Okay. And if they can't, and they ask you to say, okay, this is what we want, this is what we found. And then the official within the office has an opportunity to respond, right? So they can respond to say, okay, you say you not see, Olu, stand over there. You say you not see the receipts for this. Well, yeah, the receipts. You say you not see this or this not problem. Well, let me give explanation. So this is the section where the audit service writes to you and says, this is what we found. And then the official within the office responds. So I'm going to read what the audit service wrote and then what the official responded. Okay. So the official within the office of the president, who is the secretary of the president, wrote that. In his response, this is what he said to the audit service. Quote, this office believes that the money in question, $135,000, provided as imprest for His Excellency the President and First Lady, was utilized for that purpose. Retirement details in respect of the imprest paid to His Excellency the President will, however, henceforth be obtained in accordance with the Public Financial Management of 2016. Okay, so basically the audit service says, hey, $135,000, we don't see the paperwork to support what this was used for. And the Secretary of the President says that money was used for what we said it was going to be, the necessary documents. Okay. And then the auditor commented after and said, the necessary original as per the auditee, meaning the office of the president, retirement details were made available during the audit verification process. Following detailed verification, inspection, and other standard audit checks, including checks with third parties where applicable and possible, we concluded the following. So they're saying, okay, when they do this process, they write, then they respond. But in addition to the response way, the office of the president's GI, they also contacted third-party sources, which they have the power to do, which is like, sometimes they contact the people that wait and pay, or something like that. But they can contact additional other people to get the information they need. Okay. The sum of $110,000 should be refunded. Sorry, let me just open this. Okay, so we concluded that the sum of $110,000, $1.8 billion, should be refunded by the payees, meaning the state chief of protocol and the personal assistant to the First Lady, as the retirement receipts were marred by discrepancies, inaccuracies, and inconsistencies. The receipts provided have also been disputed by the concerned third parties. What does this mean? So the total amount that the audit service said so they questioned spending of $135,000. The Secretary of the President said that $135,000 was used like we said it was going to be used. It is for the president's impress. The audit service said they review the receipts and the documents that we then send. And pan waiting the review, $110,000 in their opinion, in the audit service's opinion, of that 135 should be refunded by the state chief of protocol and the personal assistants to the First Lady, because the receipts that we then send had discrepancies, inaccuracies, and inconsistencies. Furthermore, the receipts have been disputed by the concerned third parties, meaning I'm guessing the concerned third parties here are the people who have said to have been issuers of the receipts. So the people that will issue the receipts, according to this, are not in agreement with the details of the receipts that were provided pan this money, which is why the audit service is saying, well, una get for $110,000 because the receipts that una send for say una use them money there so for do this and this and this and this. The receipts they're not accurate, then discrepancy they're not like the people that way una say una pay, they're not agreeing that this is what it is, if that makes sense to you. Okay, so and that matter remains unresolved. Okay, unresolved meaning that, okay, also further investigation to be cracked. So there's one transaction that totaled $25,000, and it says that further investigation to be carried out on PV 83325 that was made on March 10, 2020 for an amount of $25,000 or $247,254,500. The receipt payment is marred by discrepancies, inaccuracies, and inconsistencies. So basically, as far as the audit service is concerned, there's $130,000 that is somehow, they're not happy with how those funds were. They don't believe those funds were spent or used according to how the state chief of protocol, oh no, it's not state chief of protocol, is it? Secretary of the President says it was used. Okay. But it was the state chief of protocol and the personal assistant to the First Lady who collected the money, 110,000 of it. Okay. Now, overseas traveling expenses to Lebanon. A review of the payment vouchers supporting, stand over here, sweetie. Okay. It's okay, sweetie. A review, and can you please shut the door? A review of the payment vouchers and supporting documents relating to the president's travel to Lebanon revealed the following. The circumstances that led to the selection So this is the part about, I feel like people have been talking about this one, about the trip to Lebanon, right? We know that the president went to Lebanon for medical. So a review of the payment vouchers and supporting documents relating to the president's travel to Lebanon revealed the following. The circumstances that led to the selection of the company, a wholesaler and general distributor of pharmaceuticals and toiletries and household goods. Oh, this is the one where it's saying that, like, they're saying basically the government hired a private jet, but they used a company that is a wholesale, who is a company that's registered as a wholesaler of pharmaceuticals, toiletries, and household goods, is who they hired to provide a private jet to travel to Lebanon. And the audit service is wondering how they were able to, basically, the audit service is asking how it was that they chose a company whose business is pharmaceuticals and toiletries and household goods to provide the service of a private jet. That's one. Also, the original and true copy of the receipts to support a total payment of $156,000, $156,113 for hotel and accommodation medical treatment was not submitted for audit. Traveling officers were paid an excess of daily subsistence allowance totaling in $7,404 and $564 was underpaid DSA. Of the funds provided to cover the cost of the medical bill for the president and subsistence allowance, payments totaling $73,406 was made to cover the cost of accommodation of eight traveling officers, even though full DSA, which amounted to $75,000 to cover such costs, had been paid to them. This is an evidence of double dipping. This is from that. What is he saying? So when the president was traveling, you know, the president travels with people. What it's saying here is that even after government had already paid full DSA for 8 of the people who traveled with the president, an additional $73,000 was paid to these 8 individuals to cover the same thing. So it means that the government within the office of the president, they paid twice for the same thing. So then get in the DSA, Then say they don't pay for the DSA and take the money, then give them back for the same thing. And the audit says this: we recommend that the principal assistant, so the secretary to the president, in collaboration with the state's chief of protocol and the accountant, should provide explanation supported by documentary evidence, the circumstances that led to the selection of the company to provide private jet service. They should also ensure that original receipts for hotel accommodation and medical treatments are provided for audit inspection. In addition, the excess DSA paid should be recovered and refunded into the consolidated fund, and DSAs of 564 be paid to the underpaid concerned. And the 70% of the entitled DSA, totaling 75,852, paid to the 8 traveling officers, be recovered and refunded into the consolidated fund. This is what the officials' response. Okay, yes, DSAs per diem. The secretary to the president in his response said, quote, please be informed that the choice of the company was done through the office of the state chief of protocol after consultation with His Excellency the President. It should be noted that the security of the president should not be compromised in making such a decision. Thus, searching for any available aircraft is not an option. So in response, when the audit service asked them why they chose a company that is a wholesaler and general distributor of pharmaceuticals as the company to provide private jet service, their response is that the president's security should not be compromised in making such a decision, so they couldn't just choose any aircraft. Regarding, this is also the Secretary of the President speaking, regarding the payments of DSA per diem above the normal rates, please see a minute in respect of an appeal for additional funds to be made available to the delegates given the expensive rates of hotel accommodation in Lebanon at the time. The circumstances of that time also warranted the officers to be in the same hotel with the president. The observation that has to do with the refund of $564 to a certain officer is not clear to this office. This is their response, right? So go to 461. Oh, did I just go back? Yep. Go down. Okay. Where did I just go? I feel like, okay, so, oh, this is 2-page scroll. Is it? Okay, so this is a continued explanation of that. It is difficult to understand and appreciate. This is their response to this issue about the double dipping. This is what the Secretary to the President says, quote, it is difficult to understand and appreciate the fact that money spent by the President on his officers would be regarded as double dipping, since the officials did not put in for the request and that this money was given voluntarily by the President. This gesture is common with every president from time immemorial. This is also a common practice between senior officers and their juniors across all ministries, departments, agencies. And this is the Auditor General's comment. We noted management's response regarding the circumstances that led to the selection of the company to provide private jet services. In the absence of a clear and detailed procurement process, we conclude that it's reasonable to inquire why a company whose main business is wholesale of pharmaceuticals, toiletries, household goods, and chemists was selected to provide private jet hiring services. We therefore conclude that this matter is unresolved. Quote, original receipts, all with dates in September 2020, to support the total payment of $352,481.77 for hotel accommodation and medical treatment was presented during the audit's verification exercise. So for that trip to Lebanon, the total amount spent was $352,000, $481.77. We, however, concluded that one of the retirement receipts for $156,000, so half of that, about half of that, for hotel accommodation dated 18 September 2021 was marred by discrepancies, inaccuracies, and inconsistencies. It was also disputed by the concerned third party, whose records show that the bill remains outstanding. I want to read that again. We, someone within the Office of the President, provided a retirement receipt of $156,000 of a total bill of $352,000 to say that, hey, here is the receipt for hotel, here are receipts for hotel accommodation that we, Office of the President, paid. When the audit service contacted the people who the Office of the President said they have paid, those people said that bill is still unsettled, meaning the bill has not been paid. However, the Office of the President has receipts. Again, I just want to remind the viewing public that I'm not telling this story. I'm just reading what is there, okay? I'm just reading what's in the Auditor General report. This is not my information. Sweetheart, scoot over there. If you pay someone $150-something thousand for a bill and you have a receipt that says you pay them, and when they call the people up and say, hey, I'm from the Audit Service of Sierra Leone. I'm calling to confirm I've just received this receipt about payment that was made to you by the Office of the President in Sierra Leone on this date and this time, receipts number rah, 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 rah. I'm calling to confirm whether or not you have in your receipt proof of receiving this payment. And the person in Lebanon says, hi, thank you, Audit Service Sierra Leone. Yeah, we did have those people stay with us. However, no, we did not issue a receipt for that amount. Actually, we haven't been paid. Audit Service. Okay, thank you, bye. That's how I imagine. This is how I imagine that conversation were. Like the level of anyways, let me just continue doing what we're here to do. Shh, oh, calm down. Okay, so they said that the money hadn't been paid. The people who were supposed to receive the money said they didn't receive it. So I'm going back to read the response. We noted that hospital bills to the value of $170,489 were settled in cash at the hospital in question. So we took our government, Office of the President, took $170,000 in cash and used it to pay a hospital bill. The audit concludes that although the amount has been paid, so the amount was paid for that $170,000. So the first amount we were talking about was for hotel, the $156,000, that was for hotel. Now we're talking about $170,000 for hospital bill. And this here says that, yes, they confirmed that that hospital bill was paid. Okay, Olu, stop it. And the supporting documents were provided. In the interest of transparency, good public financial management practice, and exemplary anti-money laundering reasons, we are of the opinion, we meaning the audit service, that such a settlement should have been done through a bank transfer. Given the level of cash involved, the matter is being highlighted as a reference for future transactions. So the audit is saying basically, the money to work for we take all that money they will go give somebody for go pay for something, because then you can't track it. And they're saying due to like issues around just public financial management and money laundering, we should have just sent them a bank transfer, right? From the government, pay them to their own bank account. Now, regarding the overpayment of $7,404 as per DM to officers, management's response is noted. Management meaning audit service is saying, like, we hear what you said about, you know, this money being used that way. However, it fails to clear the matter considering the fact that the cost of accommodation for these officers was covered by the imprest, meaning that the imprest that was already taken already covered the hotel and accommodation for those officers. The audit concludes that until there is evidence of a refund into the consolidated fund, this issue remains unresolved. With regard to per diem of $564 payable to the concerned officer, no evidence of payment was made available for verification. Therefore, this matter remains unresolved. Meaning, then tell them, say, so audit service noticed that somebody not be receiving full per diem. They underpaid them by $564. So audit service tell them, say, I get for pay this person this $564. Then say, well, we don't know what you mean by that. Then say, well, say una pay this person, or una provide evidence so una don't pay her. That matter there is unresolved. With regards to the payments for accommodation for officers who had already received full per diem, which is usually meant to cover the cost of accommodation and sustenance for traveling officers, and accommodation elements of 70% of the per diem is refundable, as the state cannot pay twice for the same transaction. The audit concludes that the sum of $73,416 should be recovered from the affected officers and paid back into the consolidated fund. And unless and until full recovery of these funds are made, the issue remains unresolved. Continued. Updated assets register not maintained. So this is just another issue, meaning that the Office of the President has assets, and it goes further to explain that like there's not a proper, they're not keeping good records of the assets. So now I'm going to move to the Office of the Vice President, because we're here, why not? Office of the Vice President. Okay, so here are issues raised in this audit about the Office of the Vice President. 50% advance payment instead of 30% advance payment guarantee not submitted. An advance payment totaling $250 million, which is more than 30% of the contract sum, was made to Malado Associates Sierra Leone Limited for the refurbishment of the Office of the Vice President, contrary to Section 1353 of the Public Procurement Regulation of 2018. Advance payment guarantee was also not submitted in contravention of Section 135(3) and 4 of the Procurement Regulation of 2018. We recommend that the procurement manager should give an explanation in writing, supported by documentary evidence, justifying why 50% advance was paid rather than 30%. This is the Secretary to the Vice President's response. The quote, "The Office of the Vice President and his front desk officer's office were in very bad shape and needed urgent refurbishment. The Vice President requested that the entire job should be done within 3 weeks. It was because of the above that the contract agreement spelled out for an advancement payment of 50%, while the remaining was to be paid after the satisfactory completion of the contract. Management notes the audit's recommendation. The contract agreement is available for audit inspection, but going forward, management is assuring the audit team that it will not entertain such contract agreement." Here is the auditor's response. "The request of the Vice President to fix the front desk of his office did not in any way suggest that the contractor should be paid 50% rather than 30%. We therefore conclude that the reason for the breach is unacceptable, and as a result, the matter remains unresolved." This is also within the Office of the Vice President. Payments to bereaved families without an approved policy. An amount totaling $1,779,823,000 was paid from the Consolidated Fund by the Government of Sierra Leone to bereaved families of deceased public officers for the year 2020 without an approved policy on state funeral and related matters. We observed that retirement details were not provided to support $65 million of government contributions. We recommend that these payments be disallowed and surcharged on the approving officers, except for evidence that these undertakings were in accordance with applicable law or approved policy. Furthermore, the Secretary to the Vice President should ensure that retirement details for the unretired amounts be submitted for inspection. This is something that actually has been recurring almost every audit. Government keeps paying for funerals. However, government doesn't have any law or policy that says that it should or it must or it will. So every time government pays for somebody's funeral, they're doing so like there's no law. They're just doing it. There's no actual if it's bad, they should, if it's like something they want to do, they should just change the law so that they can do it. But there's no law, but they keep doing it. This isn't just this government. They've been doing, like every year, government pays for funerals, but we don't really have a law that says this is something government should be paying for. Okay. There's also Office of the Chief Minister here. I don't know if that's important. Let's go back to something I think is really important, the Ministry of Finance, because you cannot have the Ministry of Finance that is like in charge of the money, not doing the money properly. So let's go back to, oh, this is Ministry of Education. Okay, I'll do Ministry of Education because I don't see them first, then I'll go to Ministry of Finance. Okay, so Ministry of Education has like a headquarter, and then they have like a offices across the board, like different districts. Okay, so oh no, that's not it. Okay, so this is Ministry of Basic and Audit, Ministry of Basic and Senior Secondary Headquarters at 2020. Here are some key issues raised. I'm not going to read everything because I don't think everything is important, but so procurement irregularities in the management of contracts for the supply of teaching and learning materials. The following procurement irregularities were identified during the review of the bidding process leading to the award of contracts for the supply of teaching and learning materials. The Evaluation Committee's recommendation for a contract to be awarded to a successful bidder in respect of Lot 5 with a bid of $7.1 billion was not complied with. Instead, the contract was awarded to the second responsive bidder with a bid price of $6.7 billion. That initially failed pre-qualification stage in the bidding process. Okay. So one thing that happened was they were procuring for learning materials. The successful bidder bid for $7.1 billion, and the evaluation committee recommended that that person be awarded the contract. But the contract was awarded to the next person who, when they were doing, I don't understand that deal. They gave the contract to someone who had failed the pre-qualification stage in the bidding process. Yeah. So they gave the contract to somebody who shouldn't have gotten it. Okay. The senior procurement secretary in his response said, the contract was awarded based on a recommendation from the National Procurement Agency, which regulates public procurements in Sierra Leone, and evidence is available for verification. They also indicated that needs assessment was done for all TLM items procured, and action will be taken by MBSSE to request that schools do not have the supporting facilities do so. The ministry was, so auditors comment, the ministry was in breach of Procurement Act 2016. Additionally, there was no evidence that needs assessment and the involvement of the, okay, that's something else. So basically, yeah, they gave the contract to who they wanted to give it to. Simple. There was also issues about the contract of supply of diets for kids. Bank withdrawals without supporting or adequate documents. That was also an issue. And then there was recruitment irregularities. So in 2018, the government, through the Human Resource Management Office, awarded contracts to 79 staff in order to help the Ministry of Basic and Senior Secondary Education to effectively coordinate the free quality education nationwide. Added to this staff was a communication unit that was headed by a communication specialist and a Directorate of Planning and Policy, which incorporates a situation room that was responsible for data collection analysis. Though the contracts of the free quality education staff were renewed in 2020, the communication unit and its specialists, together with the research and planning unit and its component situation room, remain in existence. The ministry also went ahead to seek an executive clearance for the recruitment of a delivery team comprising 5 staff. The sum of 2.8 billion donated by the Chinese government for education-related policy and development and implementation activities was dedicated to the delivery team to set up an office, pay salaries, and other administrative issues. We note the following. Despite the fact that the executive clearance requested the ministry through the Senior Permanent Secretary to liaise with the Ministry of Finance, the HRMO, and the Accountant General's Department for the establishment of a delivery team to provide support to the ministry, the Senior Permanent Secretary on 23rd April 2020 requested from the Director and Chief Operating Officer, Directorate of Science, Technology, and Innovation, for a staff to head the delivery team in the MBSSC. Without any evidence of consultation with the aforementioned institutions. On 29th April 2020, the staff was assigned to the MBSSC as requested to head the delivery team without any evidence of procurement protocols. Although vacancies for policy analysts, data analysts, and strategic communication specialists were advertised, there was no detailed information of the number of applicants and shortlisted candidates to ascertain whether there was fairness in the selection process. The contract between the ministry and the recruited staff were signed by the Senior Permanent Secretary instead of the Director General, the HRMO, as required by Rule 2.12 of the Sierra Leone Civil Service Code Regulations and Rules of 2011. Our major goal for setting up the delivery team was to develop the capacity of the ministry staff. One major goal of the delivery team was to develop the capacity of the ministry staff. Our review of available records do not reveal evidence of training plan, report, a capacity building plan. Even though the financial secretary advised for the salary payments proposal to be submitted in Leone's, consistent with grades and similar consultant appointments available in the payroll, the ministry submitted the payments proposal for the recruited contractors in US dollars. There is a risk of duplication of function in the ministry and a huge burden on government's payroll. The Senior Permanent Secretary should therefore ensure the following. Provide an explanation with documentary evidence on the needs assessment conducted for the recruitment of a delivery team, evidence of the communication with the Ministry of Finance, the HRMO, and the Accountant General's departments in respect of the recruitment of the head of the delivery team. He should also submit evidence of competitive recruitment process and reasons for signing contracts instead of the DG HRMO, and provide an explanation with documentary evidence why the payment proposal was quoted in US dollars instead of in Leone's. This is the response from the Senior Permanent Secretary on the following. Both the Cabinet's conclusion and also an executive clearance authorized the establishment team. Justification for setting up the delivery team is therefore well articulated in those documents. The head of the delivery team is also the executive assistant to the minister. The administrative officers are staff of the HRMO assigned to different ministries. As senior permanent secretary and representing DG and HRMO in the MBSSC, I have the authority to sign contracts for staff recruited by projects in the ministry where I am deployed. This is not the first time I'm doing it, and it has neither been queried by the audits nor myself queried by the DG HRMO. Staff of the delivery team have Leones quoted in their contracts. Auditor's comments. Management comments are noted. As a result of additional documents submitted after the completion of audits, the SSL will follow up and report on these issues in subsequent audits. There are also issues about staff not available for physical verification. So they usually count the staff, issues about inadequate controls over the management of assets. And those were like some of the key issues, but I want to go back to Ministry of Finance because that's where we have issues. And then once I read the Ministry of Finance, I will read the end of the audits. And that's all for today, folks. See, we did it. I really would like to encourage everybody who can read, who has access to a computer, to really take the time to go to the Audit Service website and read this for yourself. I think it's really, really important that, those of us who do have the access take advantage and, so you can then be more informed about what's going on in Sierra Leone, and you are in a better place to discuss the issues, to evaluate your public service people. Now, Ministry of Finance. The reason why I'm reading the Ministry of Finance section, the Ministry of Finance is the ministry that is responsible for the budgets. Now, then they prepare the budget for Kergona Parliament for go say, okay, this is, you guys, let me drink some water. This is what is required. This is what we need for national development, okay? And so if they have a problem, everywhere else is going to have the problem. The Ministry of Finance, in terms of budget and public financial management, they're the most important, that they control the spending. Okay, so this is the audit findings for the Ministry of Finance in 2020. Also, Ministry of Finance supposed to forget the smartest people in there. Like the smartest, the brightest, everything. Ministry of Finance, really, like finance and economists, like who is smarter than like finance people, right? So usually they really have the smartest people. And so, yeah. Let's read the findings of Ministry of Finance 2020, and then I'll take one request. After I read this, you tell me another one that you're gonna see, and then I'll read that one, and then I will close out this reading of the 2020 audit report. I see the people who are cursing my mother have resigned for now. They'll be back tomorrow, or they'll write something tomorrow that will go viral on WhatsApp, so don't worry. But hopefully they spell my name right. Okay, Ministry of Finance findings, 2020 audit. Withdrawals from the impressed accounts without internal relevant payment vouchers. We observed the following. We reviewed and observed that several withdrawals from the ministry's impressed accounts totaling 6.6 billion were made without internal payment vouchers and relevant supporting documents. We also observed internal payment vouchers totaling 253 million were provided but without adequate supporting documents. This is in contravention of the Public Financial Management Regulations of 2018. The official's response. The ASL's comments are noted and documents are available for verification. And so the auditor went back and reviewed, and they said the issue was partly resolved. So the ministry was able to provide some documents for some things, and some things there were no documents. So the issue is partly resolved. So there was an issue with withdrawal by a non-member of staff of the ministry. It was observed that withdrawals amounting 5.1 billion were made from the impressed accounts by a person who is neither a permanent staff nor a contract staff of the Ministry of Finance. The Deputy Financial Secretary responsible for administration had this to say, quote, "The ASL's comments are noted. However, Mr. Sheku Bangura was a former staff attached to the accounting unit of the Ministry of Finance. He was given a short-term contract to fill the gap while the process for his replacement was going on." Okay. To swiftly address the issue, Mr. Conte was transferred from Budget Bureau to occupy Mr. Sheku Bangura's position. We note management's comments, but the issue raised above were not addressed. We were not provided the documentary evidence Sorry, my computer just tired with my business right now. It just went off. Anyway, so basically, the audit service said, "Hey, somebody withdrew money from your account, and that person is not staff. They don't get contracts." Then they said, "Oh, the person was a former staff, had a contract, etc., etc." Then the auditor said, "Well, the issue has not been resolved because you've not provided evidence that the person who withdrew the money was a short-term contract, neither a permanent staff. So some withdrawals made by him were without relevant supporting documents. Therefore, the issue remains unresolved." Okay. Then there were issues of payments made from the imprest account to persons other than the requesting party. So there were issues where me request for money from finance, then finance pay other person. And on those, yeah, the issue remains unresolved. I'm just going to tell you what the thing was and that the issue remains resolved or unresolved. Withdrawals from the imprest account above 100 million used for petty cash. We noted that withdrawals were made from the account above 100 million aggregated to 4.1 billion, which the auditors did not deem as petty cash transaction. We could not ascertain the ministry's limits in determining petty cash transaction. The Deputy Financial Secretary responsible for administration response said, "The ministry has an internal policy for withdrawals of such nature which is available for inspection." Then they give the inspection. Auditor General's comments, the issue remains unresolved. Then there were issues of payment splitting. Some procurement documents not submitted for contracts awarded. I mean, you can go and check this all out yourself. Documents relating to the budget process not submitted for inspection. Budget overrun in the Ministry of Finance. This is the one that like really blew me. The amounts budgeted for current and capital expenditure during the period under review was 164,365,700. And the amount spent was 270,660,333. As per the expense analysis system, IFMIS and payroll vouchers, this resulted in a budget overrun of 106 billion in the Ministry of Finance. We therefore recommend that the Deputy Financial Secretary for Administration, in collaboration with the Budget Department, should ensure that in the future, the Ministry prepare an appropriate budget, considering all the activities from the different divisions, avoiding undertaking activities not in budget. Also, budget overruns must be factored into supplementary budgeting processes. And their response was, they gave a response, but the auditor comment was that the issue is still unresolved, meaning that their response with Engi, so this is the response they gave. Sorry, I should read it. The Deputy Financial Secretary for Administration said, following the inception of the new direction government in 2018, a management and functional review of the Ministry of Finance was undertaken, led by the Minister of Finance. The main objective of the review was to identify gaps at the Ministry of Finance. The management and functional review resulted in the expansion of the organogram and creation of new divisions and directorates in the ministry. Subsequently, recruitment of officials at various levels was done in 2020, which therefore accounts for the overrun observed in the Ministry of Finance payroll budget. The exact details of the recruitment will be communicated as soon as possible, given that the Human Resource Department is having issues with power outages for the past 4 days. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's not funny, but it's funny that the Ministry of Finance say they can't provide the documents because for 4 days they're not. So you people are just going to throw ENSA under the bus. You're just. Oh my God. And they want to tell us that they don't have a generator. So if ENSA don't go on light, they're not get for able. Okay, we here. Anyways, and regardless of what the author said, that this issue is still unresolved. We observed transactions totaling 9.8 billion, 2.3 billion, and 18 billion were posted under the contingencies fund, special warrant to the president and unallocated head of expenditure, respectively. Evidence of recommendations of consultations and approvals by Cabinet's Budget Committee, as stated in the Public Financial Management Act and the Public Financial Management Regulation of 2018, was however not provided for audit inspection. We therefore recommend that the Deputy Financial Secretary responsible for administration, in collaboration with Budget, in the future, the minister should obtain approval from the Cabinet Committee before undertaking transactions under these expenditure heads. The minister submits to the auditors for verification evidence of recommendations or consultations and approvals by Cabinet. So, Ministry of Finance did spending. 9.8 billion, 2.3 billion, 18 billion were posted under contingencies fund, special warrant to the president, and unallocated head of expenditure. And what they're saying is that they can't find the Cabinet's budget, the approval or the consultation that was done to allow them to spend those monies. Employees in the ministry receive salaries but are not on the approved staff list. The amount of 306 employees were on the payroll voucher received salaries of 387 million, but these names were not on the staff list provided by the ministry. The Deputy Financial Secretary responsible for administration said the 6 names are not staff of the ministry. So a memo has been sent to the Director General of HRMO for these names to be verified and removed from it. So 6 people got paid over 300 and something million. They're not members of Ministry of Finance staff. So how do we get that money back? Anyway, the issue is still outstanding. 7 staff in the ministry are on the ministry payroll, but they were not physically verified, meaning 7 people who received a total of 105 million in salaries. The audits couldn't count all of them. They found some people, and then some people, 5 of them, they couldn't account for. They couldn't find them physically. And then Ministry of Finance wasn't deducting NACITs from some of the staff they were paying. The issue is partially resolved. 6 persons were categorized as consultants in the ministry payroll. Their salary totaled 1.3 billion, and we requested for their contract. There is a risk that the government's revenue has been paid to persons for which no work have been done. We recommend that the deputy, so 6 people who were consultants, contract staff on the ministry's payroll were paid 1.3 billion. But there's no file or document. There was no documentation to see what their contracts were. So they wrote to them, they provided some documentation. So this is what the Auditor General said. During the verification exercise, we were provided with a contract for 1 consultant, remaining 5 consultants, contracts not submitted. And the annual gross salaries paid to those 5 consultants was 964 million. Therefore, the issue is not fully resolved. And then there were just lots of other stuff. Payments were made to suppliers of 3.1 billion without adequate supporting adequate supporting evidence. Some of it partially resolved, about some 2.1 billion. No supporting documents. Suppliers invoice inclusive of GST but not paid to NR. They had GST. One supplier, well, suppliers have GST in it, in their invoices, but then the GST collected is not being paid to NRA. So assets bought in the ministry but not traced. So they bought assets that can't be found, issues still outstanding. So that's it for Ministry of Finance. Is there any other ministry specifically you guys want to hear about before we close? We close this out. I was also going to, so let's go. What section is this? So we've done Office of the President, Vice President. We've done Ministry of Education. We've done Ministry of Finance. The only other one that might be interesting is, let's see, 387 that I thought was an eye raiser, which maybe we should discuss because someone actually contacted me about this and they're not being gladdy. Do you guys want to go see local government? Should we go down to local governments? Because I know that there was all this talk about, Freetown City Council, this. There was nothing. Oh, Foreign Affairs? Okay, you want to see Foreign Affairs? Let's see. Mm-hmm. I think I've been reading the audit report since 2013, and I can tell you honestly that while the monies get bigger over time, the way government acts, I don't know if the First Lady, somebody said First Lady's office, I don't know if the First Lady office did not check. I don't think so. Office of the Chief Minister. See, because the Office of the First Lady isn't really, it's not really like an office on its own. Oh, I don't know if I know that. It's not really, I don't see it here. Can you tell us about Freetown City Council? Sure, let's go to local government. I actually thought that was good because there's one local government that's like been really good, which is the Bombali District Council. So they have had the best audits since audits begin at Salone, the Bombali districts. Or is it Bombali? Yeah, that's McKinney. Yeah. They've had the best. Just want you guys to know, McKinney City Council, they are the best in terms of audits. They are the best. Their audits has been the best audits ever. From where they begin, and no one day gets qualified opinion. They have been, McKinney City Council has been consistently flawless. I just want to say that because that's what the audits say, that they understand this. They understand this audit business. Okay, let me see. Let's go to local. The local one is like chapter. It's the last part of the audits. Local government. Okay. Okay, and then I guess we will do yeah, honestly, I mean, I really wish that things hadn't gone down the way they had with regard to like firing people or suspending people. Okay, Freetown City Council. It's really not, let me go. Where's the Freetown City Council audit? Okay, so Freetown City Council outcome of, okay, so this is the outcome of the audit. So yeah, I just wanted to say that McKinney City, from 2012 to 2020, they're the only city council, not Bombali, McKinney. They're the only city government council that have maintained like an unqualified audit, which means like they always do what they're supposed to do, provide all the evidence for the audits. So we should clap for them. McKinney City Council, they're the best. All right, you guys want to hear about FCC? Of course you do. Okay, so not much. So Freetown City Council. During our review of the daily revenue cash collection and analysis sheet, we noted that there was no evidence of banking by the head of municipal trade. 70 million collected from market keepers. So we noted that there was no evidence of banking, meaning that funds collected, but it didn't go into the bank. During 2020, the council acquired a new property tax assessment application. This system contains records of the features of property in the municipality of the council and also assesses the tax payable in respect of these property. The 2020 financial statements did not disclose details such as description, maintenance, or operational obligations for this application. Additionally, end user license agreement was not submitted for audit inspection. From the review of the council's previous cadaster records, we verified property rates arrears for various property within the Freetown Municipal Council of at least 35 billion. So that's 35 billion not paid to the council. Our engagements with the system users and review of the demand notes printed from the MOP tax revealed that arrears for the property were not included. That's it. Expenditure management control. From a review of a sample of actual against budgeted expenditures, we observed an overspending of 214,854,574. The necessary authorization for this overspending was not submitted for audit inspection. Management responded to the unbudgeted and overspending in some budget lines was as a result of veerment from the budget line to another due to some exigencies, but the authority for such action was not submitted for audit inspection. So that's council spent a little bit, 214 million more than it was supposed to. Payments of salaries to former workers. 2020, the council paid salaries totaling 83 million to 12 staff who have either retired, resigned, or died on diverse dates without justification. In spite of our recommendation that the names of these staffs are removed from council's payroll and that the council should recover the paid salaries and evidence of payment forwarded to the ASL for verification, there was, however, no evidence that the amounts were refunded. We conducted physical verification of the staff of the council within a 4-week period and observed that 75 staff with annual total salary 772 million did not show up for verification. These staff may not exist, and salaries paid to them might have resulted in waste or loss of public funds. My internet is acting up again. Tell you this internet. Anyway, Freetown City Council, unconfirmed bank balances. Analysis of the bank confirmations received revealed that 3 bank accounts with year-end balances totaling 17,929,693. No, sorry, that's 17,929,693 were not confirmed. Okay, free quality education bus service. This is under Freetown City Council still. In early September 2019, in order to reduce the constraints faced by school pupils over transportation and in support of the free quality education, government provided 50 school buses, which were distributed to each district headquarter town across the country. Below are findings during our review of the management of these buses by local council. Freetown City Council. Poor leadership on school bus operations. On March 2020, a coordinator for the FCC Free Quality Education Bus Service was appointed on a temporary basis. There was no evidence that this staff has the necessary authority to control the bus drivers and conductors or drivers' aides. From our discussion with the coordinator, we noted that the activities of the buses were not independently checked to verify challenges and provide solutions. The coordinator revealed that there are instances when bus conductors fail to hand over cash collected because they are alleged to have used their personal monies to maintenance the buses. Lack of control over revenue generation, fuel allocation to non-operational buses, significant delays on the maintenance of buses involved in an accident. Just reading the highlights. Okay, assessment of service delivery by devolved sectors. This is still for Okay, Freetown City Council. Selection from an unapproved, this is still on Freetown City Council. Selection from an unapproved database of suppliers. Procurement of goods, works, and services estimated to be worth 4.3 billion, which accounted for at least 80% of the total procurement in 2020, were done with the use of request for quotation procurement method. This method requires the selection of at least 3 different suppliers from a database of suppliers, developed and updated in accordance with the provision in Section 48 to 51 of the Public Procurement Act. Evidence of the development and update of the database was not submitted for audit inspection. So basically, 80% of the procurement done at FCC, they're doing this thing where, you know how this procurement thing where they just get like 3 quotations, and then, and I put quotations in marks because in Sierra Leone, usually what happens, and I'm not saying this is what happens at FCC, but usually when they say get 3 quotes, the person who wants to award the contract goes to people who they know they don't want to give, gets 2 quotes, and then the person that they actually want to give it to, they get 1 quote from them. And that person, they already know what they should quote for anyways, which is why that RFQ thing isn't really always the most transparent way to procure goods and services. But I'm not saying that it's not being done transparently. I'm just saying that that's not always the best way to do procurement if you want free, fair, and good value for money. The council procured a motor vehicle in service of the construction of a learning adventure daycare and nursery at Congo Water Market. worth 525 million. A sole sourcing procurement method was used. These procurements were, however, not planned. Justification for the use of this procurement method was not submitted, and there was no evidence that the choice of this procurement method was subject to approval by a procurement committee and subsequently endorsed by the National Public Procurement Agent Authority. This was in contravention of the provisions in Section 46 of the Public Procurement Regulation of 2022. Procurement decision resulting in cash loss. This is still about FCC. The council spent an extra 182 million on 2 different construction projects due to procurement decision during evaluation of bids. For procurement activities, Lot 1, construction of boundary wall fence at Robis Cemetery, and the rehabilitation of office space and a 2-seater toilet at Lot 3, completion of community health center, Mogwe Engineering Construction Services. Bids were rejected even though the bid prices were lower than the prices quoted by the successful bidders. The reason being that the bidders did not submit academic certificates, but curriculum vitae was submitted of its personnel. Despite meeting all the major requirements for Lot 3, the successful bidder also did not submit academic certificates for its personnel, but was awarded the contract. These decisions were in contravention of Section 67 of the Public Procurement Regulation of 2020, which clearly outlined the requirements to assess the responsiveness of bids. So basically, the contract went to who they wanted to give, and not necessarily who won the bid. Okay. Award of contracts to non-responsive quotations. Contrary to the contract requirements and to the provision in Section 114 of the Procurement Regulation of 2020, procurement activities were executed by bidders who failed to submit valid business documents, such as council business. Sorry. That's funny to me because the people didn't submit their own Freetown City Council business registration and they still gave them contracts. At minimum, tell them, yeah, before we go on this contract, una register with FCC, una pay una business license. So that's really, those were like the key for FCC. And now to Olu, I'm still doing this, please. Okay. And now to close out this reading, okay? We need to close it out. And to close it out, we have to go back to all the way to the top, okay? Now, wait, did somebody else ask for a specific? I think somebody asked for foreign affairs. Okay. Let's see. Foreign affairs will be down there. 4 something, 3 something. So we'll read foreign affairs and then we'll close this out. This was a special request from someone in the comments. Ministry of Transport and Aviation. Ministry of Defense. There's some other good ones here, but let me see what page Foreign Affairs is on. Okay, Finance was number 1. Ministry of Foreign Affairs. About the timber issue. Timber did not make front and center on this particular audits, to be honest. There was maybe 1 or 2 lines, and it was basically, again, there wasn't the number quoted this time. There was no figure about timber, but let me just look that up. I can search for timber. Okay, so domestic revenue. So this is about the timber. The general domestic revenue, timber, okay, timber. So weak controls on reconciliation of timber revenue. We observed an apparent weak internal control over the processing of the export of timber in comparing the non-tax revenue cash book and Executor wall data regarding timber exports. We observed that containers exported exceeded the number stated in the NTR timber cash book and the NRA receipts. We recommend that management regularly carry out reviews to prevent clearing agents and staff from duplicating NTR receipts in the Executor world. Monthly reconciliation should be carried out between customs and non-tax departments for timber transactions. Seems like that's still that's still that, I mean, it's kind of like it hasn't. Did the government complete the sale of land, mining, and private beach to the counties? I didn't see any of that in the audit, any mention of that. So foreign affairs. Foreign affairs. Trying to find Ministry of Foreign Affairs, their page. Well, take me good in on computer. Let me so. Let's see. For I want to see Ministry of Foreign Affairs. There's immigration, but I don't see foreign affairs. Let's see, Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Corporation and International Corporation. Okay, due to, okay. Statutory rank, okay, done. Ministry of Transport, I still don't see it. I think that's it really for today. I can't find, my brain is probably like burnt. But I wanted to go over the end of the the AG's note on the audit to wrap this up for you guys. Yeah, so okay, so I'm going to close this out by reading on the domestic revenue, on debt, on expenditure, and the summary of the findings. Yeah, just like quick wrap up for you. In case you're just tuning in case you missed the beginning, close it out for you. Okay, these are the main points. Here are areas we examined. This is from the audits. The government revenue collected in 2020 increased by 6% from 5.6 trillion in 2019 to 5.97 trillion in 2020. The audits covered revenue generated from goods and services, corporate tax, foreign travel tax, withholder tax, pay-as-you-earn, capital gain tax, petroleum, timber, importation, and non-tax revenue from selected MDAs. Many of the key revenue streams operated on a self-assessment, with individuals and businesses completing their returns and making the relevant tax liability payment. Our focus was to check the controls in respect of the assessment, banking, and reporting of revenue and compliance with the various tax laws and regulations to taxpayers and MDAs. Public debt. The total outstanding public debts of the government of Sierra Leone as of December 2020 was 27.1 trillion, or 62% of GDP, comprising domestic debts of 7 trillion and external debts of 20 trillion. Debt management servicing in the annual recurrent budget represents a significant value and is considered material in audit terms. Public debt liability is a major government liability and critical sustainability issue for the government of Sierra Leone. It requires comprehensive, accurate, and timely records for good management. Moving on to direct budget support. The total amount of direct budget support grants received during 2020 was 302 billion. Consisting of a HIPC relief, 12.5 billion, and the European Union States Building Contract budgetary support of $25 million. 25 million euros, or 289 billion. The total amount of direct budget support loan disbursement in 2020 was 2.5 trillion, consisting of the World Bank 831 billion, which is the equivalent of $101 million, contributing 395 billion under the third Productivity and Transparency Support Grant Agreement, with an additional 436 billion. The total amount received from the African Development Bank was 126 billion, the equivalent of $12 million, as part of its support to the COVID-19 response under the replenishment of the Revolving Fund COVID-19 Response Program. The IMF also provided its budgetary support of 1.6 trillion to the government of Sierra Leone through the Bank of Sierra Leone. Expenditure. Government expenditure in 2020 increased by 43%. So if there's something you want to remember, if you remember nothing else, government domestic revenue increased by 6%. Okay, that's how much we raised, 6% more than last year. But government spent 43% more in 2020. From 6.1 trillion in 2019 to 9.1 trillion total expenditure. Leading minus repayments in the original approved budget for 2020 was 9.3 trillion. This amount was increased to 10 trillion as a result of supplementary budget, which Parliament approved in 2020. Just keep spending. Anyway, cash and bank. The total cash and bank balances, you guys don't need to know this. Okay. Now, the last part I'm going to read is this. Okay, so these are the last parts I'm going to read. Expenditure, public debt, and yeah, expenditure. What the audit has to say on expenditure and public debt. Expenditure control continues to be very robust. Payment vouchers and supporting documents are available for all transactions through IFMIS system. The implementation of these controls have improved the integrity of the payment process generally. Payment from impressed accounts, both standing and special impress, is however challenged with insufficient funds and weak controls. In many MDAs, payment vouchers are not raised when monies are disbursed from the impressed accounts. Furthermore, A good number of disbursements are not supported with documents, which is necessary to justify that the money spent are utilized for their intended purposes. Okay? And that's that. So the main area of concern in terms of loans is a few loans with substantial value that were not disclosed in the general purpose financial statements. Therefore, we observe the following. Oh, that's on page 9. Y'all can go read that. Okay, so that's it, really. 2.5 hours. Okay, so this is the thing. Unfortunately, in Sierra Leone, like, we have this thing where we believe that, like, when people are in positions of power, we kind of just generally feel like na den get power and relinquish all this to them and think that because na den get power, they have rights to spend the money how they want and when they want, etc., etc. Like, people really don't like accountability generally. Like, in our culture, like, we just feel like for supposed to get power, it is above accountability. And that attitude, that belief, is the worst thing for Salon, to be really, really honest with you. Because this is the thing. The reason why I've been reading these audit reports since 2013 is because of this. Even if Sierra Leone gets $1 trillion tomorrow, right? Government gets $50 trillion tomorrow. Government gets an infinite amount of money tomorrow. And we had right now, we know all of our budget, right? We're heavily donor dependent and on loans. We don't, Salon, they generate, our GDP is like 4 billion. It's like really tiny. We know they generate enough anything. We know they export much. Like, we just don't have enough revenue streams, right? So my thing is, like, even if government, so we already get like a budget deficit, major budget deficit. Fine, no problem. But even if tomorrow we got all the money we needed, if we cannot do proper public financial management, that's for nothing. If you're still going to do contracts without doing proper procurement, you're going to overpay for contracts. If you're still like hiring people without going through due process, you're going to overpay them salaries. If you're still double dipping into the account, you're going to overpay. So, like, if you're still taking money from the account without documentation, you're going to keep doing that. The more money we get into the system, the more money government will have to waste and abuse. And then we know they go, no matter whose government. And, there are people who've been watching this, they're like, oh, this is not about APC and SLPP. This is about government, period, and how our government works and how there really isn't accountability. Because from last year, audits will come out, parliament, but they're not discussing self in parliament. From where these governments kind of power, these parliaments will we elect, so they've not discussed the audits. Nothing, not happening. So this one self we don't come out, the guy come out, so fail. All that's not they weaken governments and they make the country they go before, because people need to know what's going on. People need to, I like Monica and Sumaga for all team. If they're not going to manage the money properly for what it's supposed to, free and fair, transparent procurement, making sure you're making good value for money decisions, so that if something at $10, not go pay $15 because you can forget the $5 extra, all of that, and they spoil the government and they spoil the country. The answer is not, oh, next election vote so, next election vote so. The answer is we have to find ways to hold people accountable when they mismanage funds, which is why the audit service is so important. Whose other organization they in this country where they tell we this level of transparency about spending? There is none. There is none. None. Audit service and be audits them Ebola funds them. Where SLPP will now take as vuvuzela, they say then they begin protest and they make concerned citizens in America, they make protest. And this same audit service, now the information they be used for campaign for Cosila's government. Where then where the audit service doing audits, then suspend this and suspend that. It just further weakens government, because the next government we can, then go suspend audits. Like, each time we keep doing these things, it just makes it worse. It just makes it worse. When we do bad policy, when we are heavy-handed with governance, it makes everything worse, really. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. Like I said, these are not things that I wrote. But I respect the people who do it because this is hard work. For data salon, for tapna salon, for the guy for hold people they're accountable for the team when they do and the way they spend. Forget mind even rights. Forget mind even rights. Then say, oh, we see this, you this for not afraid for do that as salon. Yeah. Anyways, my advice is, keep engaging. You have to keep engaging. Because you're not gonna say, oh, because I'm not go but me, I'm not gonna talk again. You go tired by your government. You go tired by your government. We can't get tired. Do you guys know how many times that they decide say, I know they put one salon business again? I will not even say after this audit reading, I put up a salon business again. After today, we're not going to get it because I know say they for cost me too much. So this is not my job. And yeah, definitely I don't and I won't comment on every issue in Sierra Leone, every issue on governance. I will only talk about the things that I feel like talking about, the things that are important to me. And one thing that's very important to me is accountability and corruption. Because now this will be we make will be voted out the last government. Accountability and corruption. Now, we're waiting and call. My friend Francis Benkaipala says, it's just the auditor's opinion. now this God, Francis, who was in waiting Renaissance, this, then they protest black this, black that. Now he's ACC. He says it's just the Auditor General's opinion. Okay, it's just their opinion. Okay, it's just an audit opinion. I said, Lord, wonders, the manifestation of the wonder shall never cease. Hey, opinion. It's just an opinion. Okay, we'll be here. Anyways, like I said, thank you so much for watching, and please don't forget that Leone Stars is playing on Tuesday. Let me find the let me see, Leone Stars. I'll find the AFCON schedule. I mean, just find the time for you so you can tune in and watch, because Leone Stars are playing. Okay, so we're playing on Tuesday. We're playing Algeria at 1 p.m. I want to believe it's 1 p.m. GMT. Let me see. I think it's 1 p.m. GMT. Yeah, so if you're in the rest of Africa, you can watch it on DSTV naturally. I don't know where else you can watch it, if not on DSTV, but Google about it. So Tuesday, Team Leone Stars, Team Sierra Leone. Okay. Show your support. And no matter what happens, I just want to say that, somebody said earlier this week, and I think it's so true, let's continue to be good fans. No matter what happens, be a good fan. A good fan doesn't stop being a fan because they don't get the outcome that they want. A good fan doesn't threaten somebody's life because they don't play the way they want them to play. A good fan not a cause pussy mama because you not do what you expect or not get the outcome. Football is a game. AFCON is a game. I believe that these guys are going to give it the best that they can, and the do is just support them, regardless of what happens. Okay. Of talk. Nobody gonna pay me. Thank you for watching.